The Great Hall of the Galactic Federation was silent. Thousands of delegates from hundreds of worlds sat in their seats, their many eyes fixed on the central platform. The holographic display showed images of destruction, burning cities, dead planets, ships torn apart in the void of space. High Chancellor Vorith, a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms, stood at the podium. His voice was heavy with shame and sadness. 3 crises in 10 standard years, he said. The void plague that killed billions, the mechanical uprising that destroyed 12 worlds, and now the Darkstar collapse that threatens to consume an entire sector of space. Each time our response was slow. Our leaders argued while people died. Our committees debated while civilizations fell. He paused and looked around the hall. Many delegates looked away, unable to meet his gaze. We are failing, Vorith continued. The Galactic Federation has existed for 10,000 years. We have brought peace to 1,000 species, but we have grown weak. We have become too slow, too careful, too afraid to act, and our people are paying the price. A murmur went through the crowd. Everyone knew this was true, but no one wanted to say it out loud. I have served as High Chancellor for 200 years, Vorith said. I have watched us stumble from one disaster to the next. I have seen good beings die because we could not make decisions fast enough. I am tired of watching. I am tired of failing. He took a deep breath. The Council of Elders has met in emergency session. We have looked at every option. We have studied every possibility. And we have come to a decision that many of you will find strange. Some of you will find it offensive, but we believe it is our only hope. The hall grew even more quiet. Everyone leaned forward. We are going to ask the humans to lead us. The silence exploded into chaos. Delegates jumped to their feet. Voices shouted in 100 languages. Some cried out in anger. Others laughed in disbelief. A few simply stared in shock. The humans, the youngest species in the Federation. They had only been members for 50 years. They were loud, aggressive, and unpredictable. They lived short lives and made quick decisions. Most other species thought they were barely civilized. Order, Vorith shouted. There will be order in this hall. It took several minutes for the noise to die down. When it finally did, a delegate from the Zentari collective stood up. She was a small being with gray fur and large black eyes. High Chancellor, she said, her voice sharp with anger, this is madness. The humans are children compared to us. My species has been part of the Federation for 3,000 years. The Velthari have been members for 5,000 years. Why would we give power to beings who still remember their first steps into space? Because they are better at surviving than any of us, Vorith answered. The Zentari delegate made a sound of disgust. They are reckless, they take foolish risks, they act without thinking. They act, Vorith said simply. When the Void Plague reached their colony world of New Eden, what did they do? They did not wait for permission from the Federation Medical Council. They did not file requests for emergency resources. They burned their own ships to create a quarantine zone. They sacrificed 3,000 of their own people to stop the plague from spreading. It worked. Every other world that waited for our help lost millions. The hall fell quiet again. When the mechanical uprising sent its war machines to the Kepler system, who responded first, not the Federation Defense Fleet. They were still in committee meetings arguing about jurisdiction. The humans sent 17 ships. They lost 15 of them, but they held the line until help arrived. Without them, the machines would have reached the core worlds. Vorith looked around the room. And now, with the Darkstar collapse threatening to destroy everything in Sector 7, who has already sent ships into the danger zone? Who is already evacuating civilians while we debate rescue procedures? The humans. Always the humans. A delegate from the Velthari Empire rose slowly. He was ancient, his purple scales faded with age. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of 5,000 years of civilization. I have studied the humans, he said. They are fascinating and terrifying in equal measure. They evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day. Their planet has earthquakes, volcanoes, storms, and predators. They survived ice ages and plagues. They fought each other constantly, yet they never stopped working together when it mattered. He paused. They have a concept that does not translate well into our languages. They call it emergency mode. When disaster strikes, something changes in their minds. Their fear becomes fuel. Their individual desires disappear. They become a single organism focused entirely on survival. I have seen it happen. It is both beautiful and terrifying. The Zentari delegate spoke again. So they are good in emergencies. That does not mean they should lead us. What about diplomacy? What about long-term planning? What about the delicate balance of power between our worlds? They will need help with those things, Vorith admitted. We are not suggesting that humans rule us like emperors. We are suggesting that we give them authority over crisis response. When disaster strikes, a human commander would have the power to act immediately, without waiting for committee approval. In times of peace, we would continue to govern ourselves as we always have. A young delegate from a world called Thesson Prime stood up. She had bright orange skin and eyes that glowed with inner light. I was on Station Omega during the mechanical uprising, she said. I watched a human named Sarah Chen take command when our own leaders fled. She was just a cargo pilot. She had no military training. But when the machines came, she organized our defense. She made decisions in seconds that saved thousands of lives. I am alive because of her. She looked around the hall. I have seen what humans can do. I trust them more than I trust our own leaders. The debate continued for hours. Arguments flew back and forth across the Great Hall. Some delegates spoke of tradition and the dangers of giving power to outsiders. Others told stories of human bravery and quick thinking. A few suggested compromise positions that satisfied no one. Finally, as the artificial sun of the station began to dim into evening mode, Vorith called for a vote. All those in favor of inviting human leadership for crisis response, signal now. The lights began to glow across the hall, green for yes, red for no. For a long moment the colors seemed evenly split, then slowly more green lights appeared, and more, and more. When the count was finished, 62% had voted yes. The humans would be invited to lead. Now the Federation just had to hope the humans would agree. Admiral James Wright was having a bad day. His ship, the UES Resolute, was currently racing toward a dying star at speeds that would have seemed impossible just a century ago. Behind him, a fleet of evacuation ships struggled to keep up. Ahead of him, millions of people waited to die. The Dark Star collapse was worse than anyone had predicted. The ancient star at the center of Sector 7 was not just dying. It was tearing apart the fabric of space itself. The gravitational waves it generated were destroying everything within light years. Planets were being pulled from their orbits. Stations were being crushed like paper. And in the middle of it all, on a world called Haven, 12 million beings were trapped. Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from Federation Command, his communications officer said. Tell them I'm busy, Wright growled. We have 6 hours before Haven becomes unlivable. I don't have time for political discussions. Sir, they say it's about leadership, something about a vote. Wright turned to his officer with confusion on his face. Leadership, what are they talking about? I don't know, sir, but they're very insistent. Wright sighed. Fine, put them through, but make it quick. The face of High Chancellor Vorith appeared on the screen. He looked tired and old. Admiral Wright, he said, I know you are in the middle of a crisis. I will be brief. The Galactic Federation has voted to request human leadership for emergency response operations. We want your species to take command when disasters threaten our people. Wright stared at the screen for a long moment, then he laughed. You're joking, he said. You want us to lead. Half the Federation thinks we're barely intelligent animals. That was before, Vorith said. Now we know better. We have watched you for 50 years. We have seen what you can do. We need that ability. We need leaders who can act. Wright shook his head. Chancellor, I don't have time for this. I have 12 million people to save. I know, Vorith said, and that is exactly why we need you. Please, Admiral, consider our offer. The fate of the Federation may depend on it. The transmission ended. Wright stood in silence for a moment, thinking. Then he turned to his crew. You heard him, he said. They want us to lead. What do you think? His first officer, a woman named Rodriguez, shrugged. I think we're already leading, sir. We just haven't had the title. Wright nodded slowly. You might be right, but first, let's save those 12 million people. Then we can worry about politics. He turned to the navigation console. All ships, this is Admiral Wright. Begin final approach to Haven. We're going in. The human fleet dove toward the dying star. The people of Haven looked up at the sky and waited for rescue. And across the galaxy, the Federation held its breath. The future was about to change. President Elena Vasquez stood in her office on Earth, reading the official request from the Galactic Federation. Her advisors surrounded her, their faces showing a mix of excitement and concern. They actually did it, she said quietly. They actually voted to give us leadership authority. 62% approval, her chief of staff noted. Not unanimous, but a clear majority. There will be resistance, her military advisor warned. Many species in the Federation have been around for thousands of years. They won't like taking orders from humans. Vasquez nodded. I know, but this is an opportunity we cannot ignore. The Federation needs help. They're asking us for that help. How can we say no? We could say no by saying no, another advisor suggested. This is a huge responsibility. If we fail, every species in the galaxy will blame us. Our reputation will be destroyed. And if we succeed? The advisor was quiet. Vasquez walked to the window and looked out at the Earth below. The blue planet turned slowly, its surface dotted with clouds and continents. Somewhere down there, billions of humans were living their lives, unaware that their species was about to step onto the galactic stage in a way they had never imagined. We didn't ask for this, she said, but it's who we are. We help, we protect, we fight for those who can't fight for themselves. That's what makes us human. She turned back to her advisors. Contact the Federation. Tell them we accept, but make it clear that we're not doing this for power or glory. We're doing it because people need help and we know how to help them. What about Admiral Wright? Someone asked. He's still in the middle of the Haven evacuation. He'll be our first test case, Vasquez said. Let's see if he can save those 12 million lives. If he can, the Federation will know they made the right choice. If he can't. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Everyone in the room knew what was at stake. Back in the dying sector of space, Admiral Wright was facing the greatest challenge of his career. The gravitational waves from the collapsing star were growing stronger by the hour. His ships were struggling to maintain their positions, and the people of Haven were running out of time. Status report, he demanded. Gravitational interference is increasing, his science officer reported. Our transporters can only operate at 40% efficiency. At this rate, we can evacuate maybe 3 million people before the planet becomes completely unstable. 3 million out of 12 million, Wright muttered. That's not good enough. Sir, there's nothing more we can do. The physics simply don't allow it. Wright stood in silence, his mind racing. There had to be a solution. There was always a solution. You just had to find it. What if we got closer? He asked. Closer to the star, sir, that would put our ships at extreme risk. I know, but would it improve transporter efficiency? The science officer ran the calculations. Yes, if we move to within the inner safety zone, we could increase efficiency to 90%, but the gravitational stress would tear our ships apart within 2 hours. Then we have 2 hours, Wright said. That's enough time to evacuate everyone. Sir, you're talking about sacrificing the fleet. Wright looked at his officer. I'm talking about saving 12 million lives. Get me a connection to the other ship captains. Within minutes, the faces of his fellow commanders appeared on the screen. Human faces, all of them, young and old, men and women, all of them looking at him with trust and determination. You've heard the situation, Wright said. We can save everyone, but we'll lose our ships. We'll have to evacuate ourselves at the last possible moment. There's a chance some of us won't make it. Captain Sarah Chen, the same pilot who had held Station Omega during the mechanical uprising, spoke first. I didn't join this fleet to run from danger, she said. I joined to save lives. Let's do this. One by one, the other captains agreed. Wright felt a surge of pride. This was what it meant to be human. This was why the Federation needed them. All ships move to inner positions, he ordered. Begin maximum evacuation procedures. We have 2 hours to save 12 million people. Let's show the galaxy what humans can do. The fleet moved forward, diving deeper into the gravitational chaos surrounding the dying star. On Haven, the people watched in amazement as the human ships appeared in their skis. The evacuation had begun. And Admiral James Wright became the first human to hold official crisis command authority in the Galactic Federation. He intended to make it count. The first 6 hours of the Haven evacuation would become legendary throughout the galaxy. Historians would study it. Military academies would teach it. Children on 1,000 worlds would grow up hearing stories about the humans who flew into a dying star to save people they had never met. Admiral Wright stood on the bridge of the Resolute as his ship groaned and shuddered under the gravitational stress. Alarms blared constantly. Warning lights flashed red across every console. And still, the transporters worked, pulling thousands of refugees from the surface every minute. Hull integrity at 60%, his chief engineer reported. We're losing structural supports on decks 7 through 12. How long can we hold? Wright asked. Maybe another hour, maybe less. Wright nodded grimly. That has to be enough. Status on civilian evacuation. 7 million transported so far, 5 million remaining on the surface. 5 million lives still depending on them. Wright looked at the view screen, where the dying star pulsed with deadly energy. It was beautiful in a terrible way. A cosmic funeral pyre that threatened to consume everything nearby. "All ships report status," he ordered. The responses came in one by one. The Santiago was venting atmosphere from multiple decks, but still operational. The Beijing had lost its main engines and was operating on backup power alone. The Moscow was holding steady despite cracks forming in its hull. The Sydney had already evacuated its own crew to other ships, but was still running its transporters on automatic. Every ship was dying, every captain knew it, and none of them stopped working. On the planet below, chaos reigned. The ground shook constantly as Haven's crust began to fracture, buildings collapsed, oceans boiled away. The sky turned orange and then red as the atmosphere heated beyond what any living thing could survive. But in the evacuation zones, lines of people waited with desperate patience. Federation species of all kinds stood together. The tall blue Velthari next to the small gray Zentari. The insect-like Krishak beside the crystalline Thane. All of them watched the sky, waiting for the flash of light that meant another transporter was reaching down to save them. "Why are they doing this?" a young Zentari asked her mother as they waited in line. "The humans, why would they risk their lives for us?" Her mother had no answer. She had grown up believing that humans were dangerous and unpredictable. She had been taught that they were too young, too reckless, too violent to be trusted. But now human ships were dying above her head to save her people. Nothing in her education had prepared her for this. "I don't know," she finally said, "but I am grateful." The transporter beam caught them, and they vanished from the dying world. On the Resolute, Wright watched the numbers climb. 8 million saved, 9 million. The ship shuddered violently, and he grabbed a console to keep from falling. "We've lost decks 7 and 8, the engineer reported. "Complete structural failure. We had to seal them off." "Casualties?" "None. Everyone was already at evacuation stations." Wright allowed himself a moment of relief. His people were following the plan perfectly. When a deck became too dangerous, everyone moved to the next safe area. They kept working until the last possible moment, then they got out. It was organized chaos, and it was working. 10 million evacuated, the operations officer announced. 2 million remaining. Time to complete. At current rate, 45 minutes. Wright looked at the structural integrity display. They didn't have 45 minutes. They had maybe 30 before the ship started breaking apart completely. "Increase transporter power by 50%, he ordered. "Sir, that will overload the systems. We'll burn them out." "We only need them to work for 30 more minutes. Push them." The operations officer hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, sir." The transporters hummed with increased power, pulling people off Haven faster than they had ever been designed to work. On the engineering deck, components began to smoke and spark. Crew members stood ready with fire suppressants, keeping the systems running through sheer determination. 11 million evacuated, 1 million remaining. The Resolute lurched sideways as a gravitational wave hit it broadside. Metal screamed. Lights flickered. Somewhere deep in the ship, something important broke. "Main power failing," the engineer reported, switching to emergency reserves. "How much time on reserves?" 20 minutes, maybe." Wright did the math. 1 million people, 20 minutes of power, it was going to be close. "All remaining ships, maximum transporter capacity," he ordered. "Everything you have, every bit of power you can spare. We're almost there." The other ships responded. The Santiago, despite having lost half its decks, somehow found extra power for its transporters. The Beijing, running on backup systems, pushed its technology beyond all safe limits. The Moscow, the Sydney, the Cairo, the London, every ship in the fleet gave everything they had. 900,000 remaining, 800,000, 700,000. Wright watched the numbers fall. His ship shook and groaned around him. Warning messages appeared faster than anyone could read them. The Resolute was dying, but it was dying well. 500,000 remaining, 400,000, 300,000. "Main power failure imminent," the engineer warned. 30 seconds. 200,000 remaining, 100,000. "Transporters overloading. We're losing containment on the primary systems." "Just a little longer," Wright whispered. "Just a little longer." 50,000 remaining, 25,000, 10,000. The lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting everything in a red glow. The transporter console sparked and smoked. "Zero," the operations officer said, his voice filled with disbelief. All civilians evacuated, 12 million people saved. For a moment the bridge was silent. Then someone cheered and suddenly everyone was cheering. They had done it. Against all odds they had done it. But Wright didn't celebrate. He was already looking at the next problem. All ships begin emergency evacuation of crews, he ordered. Get everyone off the dying ships. Move, people, move. The celebration ended instantly as everyone remembered that their ships were falling apart around them. Crew members ran for escape pods and shuttles. Emergency transporters, the few that still worked, grabbed people and moved them to the surviving vessels. Wright was the last one on the Resolute. He stood on the bridge as the walls buckled and the ceiling cracked. Through the viewscreen he could see the other ships, most of them now empty, drifting toward the dying star. "Sir, your shuttle is waiting." His first officer's voice came over the communicator. Wright took one last look around his bridge. He had commanded this ship for 10 years. It had been his home. Now it was a dying shell, held together by nothing but stubbornness. "Goodbye, old friend," he said quietly. Then he ran for the shuttle bay. He made it with seconds to spare. The shuttle launched just as the Resolute's main hull finally gave way. Behind them, the great ship broke apart, its pieces falling into the gravitational maelstrom. But its crew was safe, all of them. As the shuttle raced away from the danger zone, Wright looked back at the destruction. 7 ships lost, dozens of others damaged beyond repair. The human fleet that had been sent to help was now scattered wreckage falling into a dead star. But 12 million people were alive. Admiral Wright closed his eyes and allowed himself to feel the exhaustion that had been building for hours. They had done the impossible. They had proven that humans could lead in crisis. Now the real challenge would begin. The news spread across the Federation like wildfire. 12 million saved, 0 civilian casualties. The humans had lost almost their entire fleet but had not lost a single refugee. On 1,000 worlds, people watched the footage in amazement. They saw human ships diving into certain destruction. They saw captains pushing their technology beyond all limits. They saw Admiral Wright standing on his dying bridge, refusing to leave until every last person was saved. "This is what humans are," a Federation news commentator said. "This is what they do. When everyone else gives up, they fight harder. When the odds are impossible, they find a way. We called them reckless. We called them dangerous. We were wrong. They are heroes." High Chancellor Vorith watched the coverage from his office. For the first time in many years, he felt something like hope. "Perhaps we made the right choice after all," he said to himself. His aide entered the room. "Chancellor, Admiral Wright is requesting a communication." "Put him through." Wright's face appeared on the screen. He looked exhausted, his uniform torn and dirty, his face lined with stress, but there was fire in his eyes. "Chancellor," he said, "we saved everyone, but we lost most of our ships. I need new vessels if you want us to continue this work." Vorith nodded. "You will have them. The Federation will provide whatever you need." "There's something else," Wright continued. "During the evacuation I received reports from my captains. Our crews worked alongside Federation species. They saw how we operate in crisis. Many of them want to learn. They want to train with us." Vorith was surprised. "Your methods are unusual. Most of our species are not as flexible as humans." "Maybe not, but they can learn. Everyone can improve in an emergency. Everyone can find that extra strength when lives are on the line. It's not magic, it's training and willpower. We can teach it." "You are proposing a training program." "I'm proposing more than that. I'm proposing that we build something new. A crisis response force that combines the best of human leadership with the resources and knowledge of the entire Federation. Not just humans leading. Everyone leading together, with human methods as the foundation." Vorith considered this. It was a bold idea. Some species would resist it, others would embrace it, but it was exactly the kind of thinking the Federation needed. "Make a formal proposal," he said. "Present it to the Council. I believe you will find support for this idea." Wright smiled tiredly. "Thank you, Chancellor. I'll get started as soon as I've slept for about 3 days." The communication ended. Vorith turned to look out at the stars. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, but for the first time in a long while, he believed they might be ready to face them. The humans had shown what was possible. Now it was time to spread that possibility to everyone. The months following the Haven evacuation were busy ones. Admiral Wright, now officially titled Crisis Response Commander of the Galactic Federation, worked tirelessly to build his new organization. Ships arrived from every corner of Federation space. Crews of all species volunteered for training. Equipment and supplies flowed in from hundreds of worlds. But not everyone was happy. On the world of Zentaris Prime, a meeting of the Zentari High Council was taking place. The gray-furred beings sat in a circle, their black eyes gleaming with anger. "This is unacceptable," the first counselor declared. "Humans commanding our ships, humans telling our people what to do. We did not join the Federation to be ruled by children." "The people support them," another counselor pointed out. "After Haven, public opinion has shifted dramatically. Our citizens watch the humans save 12 million lives. They are impressed." "Our citizens are fools who are easily swayed by dramatic stories. They do not see the danger. Today the humans lead crisis response. Tomorrow they will lead everything. We are surrendering our civilization to these aggressive primates." "What would you have us do?" The first counselor leaned forward. "We will show the Federation that humans are not worthy of leadership. We will prove that they are reckless and dangerous. And when we do, the Federation will come to its senses." "How?" A cold smile crossed the counselor's face. "We will create a crisis that humans cannot solve. We will show everyone that their methods lead only to disaster." The other counselors looked uncomfortable. "You are speaking of sabotage, of potentially killing innocent people." "I am speaking of protecting our civilization from human domination. Some sacrifices may be necessary. In the end, history will thank us." Not everyone in the room agreed, but no one spoke against the first counselor. Fear kept them silent. And so the plot began. The Galactic Federation Crisis Response Force, or GFCRF, grew rapidly in those early months. Admiral Wright established training centers on 3 different worlds. He recruited instructors from the survivors of the Haven evacuation, people who had learned firsthand what human leadership could accomplish. The training was intense. Species that had never faced real danger were pushed to their limits. They learned to make decisions in seconds, not hours. They learned to prioritize lives over procedures. They learned the human concept of acceptable risk, which meant taking chances when the alternative was certain death. Not everyone adapted well. Some species simply could not think fast enough. Their brains were not designed for rapid decision-making. Others could not overcome their cultural programming, which valued caution above all else. But many succeeded. The Velthari, with their ancient wisdom, became excellent at identifying patterns and predicting how crises would develop. The Krishak, with their hive-like social structure, excelled at coordinating large-scale evacuations. The Thane, whose crystalline bodies could survive in extreme environments, became the Federation's best rescue teams for dangerous situations. Each species brought something unique to the table, and under human guidance, they learned to combine their strengths. Captain Sarah Chen, now promoted to commander of training operations, watched a group of mixed-species cadets running through a simulation. They were responding to a simulated station fire, evacuating civilians while containing the blaze. "Time is 7 minutes, 23 seconds, she announced when they finished. 3 months ago, this same scenario took you 22 minutes. You're improving." A Zentari cadet raised a clawed hand. "Commander, I have a question. In the simulation, I made a decision to seal a compartment with 2 civilians still inside. They died, but it prevented the fire from spreading and saved 87 others. Was that the right choice?" Chen looked at the young alien with respect. This was exactly the kind of question that showed growth. "There's no perfect answer to that question," she said. "You made a choice in the moment based on the information you had. You saved 87 lives. Could you have saved everyone if you'd done something different? Maybe. Maybe not. The point is that you acted. You didn't freeze. You didn't wait for someone else to decide. That's what we're teaching you." The Zentari nodded slowly, clearly still troubled. "In my culture, a leader who allows deaths is considered a failure, even if they save others. In my culture, a leader who saves 87 out of 89 is considered a hero. We can't save everyone. We can only try our best. The worst thing you can do is nothing." The cadet thought about this for a long moment. "I think I understand," it finally said. "But understanding and accepting are different things." "Yes, they are. That's what training is for. Now let's run the simulation again. This time try to save all 89. The cadets moved back to their starting positions. Chen watched them go, feeling a mix of pride and worry. They were making progress, but something was nagging at her. Reports from intelligence suggested that not everyone was happy with human leadership. There were whispers of resistance, of plots, of danger. She had learned long ago to trust her instincts, and her instincts were telling her that trouble was coming. She just didn't know from where. 6 months after the Haven evacuation, the first major test of the new crisis response force came, and it came from an unexpected direction. The Centauri Science Station Observation Point Delta was one of the most important research facilities in Federation space. Located in deep space, far from any inhabited world, it studied exotic phenomena that were too dangerous to examine near populations. On a quiet day, the station's main reactor suddenly went critical. "All hands, emergency evacuation," the station's Centauri commander announced. "This is not a drill. Main reactor containment has failed. Everyone to escape pods immediately." 3,000 scientists and support staff scrambled for the evacuation bays. But when they arrived, they found a terrible surprise. The escape pods were gone. "What happened?" someone screamed. "Where are the pods?" The commander checked the systems. His face went pale under his gray fur. "They've been jettisoned, all of them. The computer shows they were launched 2 hours ago." "That's impossible. No one authorized that." "Someone did. Someone sabotaged us." The reactor continued its countdown to destruction. 3,000 people were trapped on a station with no way to escape. The distress signal went out across Federation space. Admiral Wright received the call on the bridge of his new flagship, the UES Determination. He was in the middle of a routine patrol, checking on the progress of the crisis response network he had built. "How long until reactor breach?" he demanded. 90 minutes, his operations officer reported. "The station is too far from any inhabited world for conventional rescue. Our nearest ships are 45 minutes away at maximum speed." "That gives us 45 minutes to evacuate 3,000 people. What's our transporter capacity at that range?" "Severely limited. Maybe 200 people per cycle. Cycles take 15 minutes at this distance. We could save 800 at most." Wright's jaw tightened. 800 out of 3,000, that wasn't good enough. "What about shuttles?" "Shuttle Bay could take another 500 if we pack them in tight, but that still leaves over 1,700 people. 1,700 people, trapped and dying because someone had sabotaged their escape pods. Wright felt anger building inside him. This wasn't a natural disaster. This was murder. "Get me Commander Chen," he ordered. Chen's face appeared on the screen moments later. "I've seen the report, Admiral. This is bad." "It's worse than bad. Someone wanted those people to die. Any idea who?" "Intelligence has been tracking some concerning communications from Centauri High Council members. They're not happy about human leadership. This could be their doing." Wright's anger burned hotter. They killed their own people to make a point. "We don't know that for certain yet, but it fits the pattern." "I don't care about the pattern right now. I care about the 3,000 people on that station. We need a solution, Commander, something unconventional." Chen thought for a moment. "The station is studying exotic phenomena, right? What exactly?" Wright checked the files. "Gravitational anomalies, miniature wormhole formations, dimensional." He stopped. "Dimensional rifts," he finished slowly. "They have dimensional rift generators." Chen's eyes widened. "If we could open a rift large enough, we could evacuate everyone directly to a safe location. No transporters needed, no shuttles needed." "Has anyone ever used dimensional technology for evacuation?" "No, it's never been tried. The risks are enormous. Dimensional rifts are unstable. If something goes wrong, the entire station could be scattered across 100 different realities." Wright looked at the countdown timer on his screen. 83 minutes until reactor breach. Hundreds of people would die if they used conventional methods. Everyone would die if they did nothing. "Get me the station's chief scientist on the line," he ordered. "We're going to try something new." Minutes later, a frightened Centauri face appeared on the screen. "Admiral Wright, I'm Dr. Vikith, lead researcher on dimensional physics. Please tell me you have a rescue plan." "I do," Wright said, "but I need your help to make it work. Can you modify your dimensional rift generators to create a stable portal large enough for mass evacuation?" Dr. Vikith stared at him. "That's theoretically possible, but we've never attempted anything on that scale. The energy requirements alone would be..." "What if we use the reactor energy? The energy that's about to destroy you anyway?" The scientist's eyes went wide. "Channel the overload energy into the generators. That's insane. The feedback could..." "Could what? Kill everyone? Everyone is already going to die if we don't try something. Can you do it or not?" Dr. Vikith was silent for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. "I can try, but I'll need help. This is beyond anything one person can calculate." "You'll have all the help you need. We're sending you every physicist in the fleet via communication link. You have 75 minutes. Make them count. Wright turned to his crew. Contact every science ship in range. Get me experts in dimensional physics, energy systems, and theoretical mathematics. We're going to save those people, even if we have to rewrite the laws of physics to do it. His crew jumped into action. The clock continued counting down. And across Federation space, scientists who had never met began working together on the most important project of their lives. The work was frantic and chaotic. Dozens of scientists from a dozen different species collaborated over communications links, sharing calculations and theories in real time. Dr. Viketh and his team worked on the physical modifications to the generators. Mathematicians ran probability analyses. Engineers designed power routing systems. And in the middle of it all, Admiral Wright served as coordinator, keeping everyone focused on the goal. "We have a problem," Dr. Viketh reported with 30 minutes left. "The rift stability equations aren't balancing. We can't guarantee that everyone who goes through will arrive at the same destination." "What do you need to fix it?" "More processing power. Our computers aren't fast enough to calculate the variables in real time." Wright thought quickly. "What about distributed processing? Can we link multiple ship computers together?" "That might work, but we've never tried to network Zentari, Velthari, and human computer systems before. The protocols are completely different." "Then we invent new protocols. You have 30 minutes, figure it out." On the bridge of the Determination, the crew worked alongside their counterparts on dozens of other ships. Language barriers were overcome through raw determination. Technical incompatibilities were bypassed through creative thinking. Rivalries and prejudices were forgotten in the face of a common goal. This was what Wright had dreamed of when he proposed the Crisis Response Force. Not just humans leading, everyone working together, combining their unique abilities to achieve the impossible. With 10 minutes left, Dr. Viketh made the final announcement. "The rift is stable. Portal destination is locked to Waystation 7. We're ready to begin evacuation." "All personnel to the evacuation zone," Wright ordered. "Move quickly but don't panic. There's time for everyone." The 3,000 people on the station began filing through the shimmering portal that had formed in the main cargo bay. One by one, they stepped into the unknown and emerged safely on Waystation 7, light years away. 2,000 evacuated, 1,000 remaining, 5 minutes to reactor breach. Wright watched the countdown with growing tension. The portal was holding, but the power demands were increasing. The reactor was feeding more and more energy into the dimensional generators. "Warning," Dr. Viketh reported. "Power levels exceeding safe limits. The generators may not hold much longer." "How many people are still on the station?" 400, 3 minutes to breach." "Everyone move faster, run if you have to." The orderly evacuation became a desperate sprint. People pushed through the portal as fast as they could move. Scientists, engineers, support staff, all running for their lives. 200 remaining, 2 minutes. 100 remaining, 1 minute. 50 remaining, 30 seconds. The last group of evacuees dove through the portal. Dr. Viketh was among them, clutching a data tablet to his chest. "Everyone is through," he shouted. "Close the portal." The portal snapped shut just as the reactor exploded. The station vanished in a burst of destructive energy that would have killed everyone aboard. But everyone was already safe. On Waystation 7, 3,000 survivors looked around in amazement. They were alive. Against all odds, they were alive. On the Determination, Wright let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "All personnel accounted for," his operations officer confirmed. "0 casualties. We did it, sir. We saved everyone." Wright nodded slowly. "We did it together. Make sure everyone knows that. This wasn't just humans. This was the whole Federation working as one." He looked at the view screen, where the distant explosion of the station was already fading into darkness. "Now," he said quietly, "let's find out who did this, and make sure they answer for it." The investigation that followed was swift and thorough. Evidence pointed directly to members of the Zentari High Council who had opposed human leadership. Communication records showed that they had planned the sabotage months in advance. They had hoped that human methods would fail, that the crisis would prove too complex for quick decisions and unconventional thinking. They had been wrong. The conspirators were arrested and brought before a Federation tribunal. The evidence against them was overwhelming. They had sabotaged their own station, endangering their own people, all to undermine human leadership. The first counselor, when confronted with the evidence, showed no remorse. "I did what I thought was necessary," he declared. "Humans are dangerous. Their methods are reckless. Sooner or later they will lead us to disaster." Admiral Wright, present as a witness, stepped forward to address the tribunal. 3,000 people almost died because of what you believed," he said. "You were so afraid of human leadership that you were willing to kill your own species to prevent it, but you failed. You failed because when crisis came, the Federation worked together. Zentari scientists, Velthari mathematicians, human coordinators, Krishak engineers, everyone contributed, everyone made the rescue possible." He turned to face the tribunal judges. "This is what we're building, not human rule, not dominance, partnership. We bring our methods, our willingness to act, our ability to make quick decisions, but we succeed because we combine our strengths with everyone else's. No species can face the challenges ahead alone. Together, we can face anything." The tribunal deliberated for 3 days. In the end, they found the conspirators guilty of treason and attempted mass murder. They were stripped of their positions and sentenced to lifetime imprisonment. But more importantly, the trial changed public opinion across the Federation. Species that had been skeptical of human leadership saw the truth. Humans weren't trying to conquer anyone. They were trying to help everyone. Applications to the Crisis Response Force tripled. New training centers opened on a dozen more worlds. Ship construction increased to meet the growing demand. The Galactic Federation was transforming, and humans were leading the way. 2 years after the Haven evacuation, the Galactic Federation Crisis Response Force had grown into the most effective emergency organization in the galaxy's history. Its network of ships, stations, and trained personnel covered every sector of Federation space. Response times that once measured in days now measured in hours or minutes. Admiral Wright stood on the observation deck of the GFCRF headquarters station, watching ships come and go. Each vessel carried crews of mixed species, trained to work together, ready to face any challenge. "You've built something remarkable," High Chancellor Vorith said, standing beside him. "When we asked humans to lead us in crisis, I hoped for competent management. I never imagined this." Wright smiled slightly. "We didn't do it alone. Every species in the Federation contributed. We just showed them how to work together." "You're too modest. Your methods, your determination, your willingness to take risks that others feared. These things came from humanity. You gave us something we had lost over thousands of years. You gave us courage." Wright considered this. "Maybe, but courage without wisdom is just recklessness. Your species have wisdom we lacked. We learned from you as much as you learned from us." Vorith nodded. "That is exactly what I mean. You adapted, you listened, you changed. Most young species come to the Federation convinced that their way is the only way. You came ready to learn and teach at the same time." A notification chime sounded. Wright checked his communicator. "Another crisis. Mining colony in Sector 12 reports seismic instability. Estimated time to catastrophic failure, 6 hours. 6 hours, Vorith said. Once that would have been impossible. Too far, too fast, too dangerous. Now it's Tuesday, Wright said with a small smile. "Excuse me, Chancellor, I have work to do." He walked to the command center, where his staff was already preparing the response. Ships were being dispatched. Personnel were being briefed. Resources were being allocated. Commander Chen met him at the central console. 12 ships en route. We'll have teams on the ground in 2 hours. Evacuation should be complete within 4. Good. Any complications? The colony's population is 90% Krishak. They have specialized atmospheric requirements. We're coordinating with Krishak medical teams to ensure proper life support on rescue vessels. Wright nodded. This was the kind of detail that made the difference between success and failure. The old Federation might have sent generic rescue ships and hoped for the best. The GFCRF knew better. "Keep me informed," he said. "I want to know the moment the first civilians are off that colony." He moved to the Situation Room where the operation would be coordinated. Screens showed real-time data from the endangered colony. Seismic readings, population maps, infrastructure damage, everything needed to save lives. Around the room, officers from a dozen species worked together smoothly. A Velthari analyst predicted the next seismic event. A Zentari communications officer maintained contact with ground teams. A human coordinator kept everyone focused on priorities. This was the Federation Wright had dreamed of building. Not humans in charge, but humans as part of something bigger. Not replacing other species, but completing them. Not conquering, but partnering. 4 hours later, the last evacuees left the colony. 15 minutes after that, The main population center collapsed into the planet's crust. Everyone who had been there was safely aboard rescue ships, watching from space. 0 casualties, another successful mission. Wright allowed himself a moment of satisfaction before moving on to the next task. Because there was always a next task, there was always someone who needed help, there was always a crisis waiting to happen. And as long as that was true, humans and their Federation partners would be ready. 5 years after the Haven evacuation, something unexpected happened. The Dark Star collapse, the same cosmic catastrophe that had threatened Sector 7 so long ago, finally ended. The dying star completed its destruction, its energy spent, its violence exhausted. And in its place, something new appeared. "What am I looking at?" Admiral Wright asked, staring at the viewscreen. His science officer, a Velthari named Thress, studied the readings with amazement. "It's a stable dimensional gateway. The collapse of the star somehow created a permanent connection to another part of the universe, perhaps another galaxy entirely. A gateway to somewhere new." "Yes, Admiral, somewhere we've never been, somewhere we've never even imagined." Wright felt a familiar excitement building in his chest. This was why humans had come to space in the first place, not to escape danger but to find new horizons, to explore, to discover, to grow. "Have you contacted Federation Command?" he asked. "Yes, High Chancellor Voreth is requesting an emergency meeting. Every species leader in the Federation will be attending. They want to discuss how to proceed." "How to proceed? We explore, obviously." Thress made a sound that might have been a laugh. "That is exactly what I expected you to say, but the Council is concerned. The gateway leads somewhere unknown. There could be dangers we cannot imagine. Many believe we should seal it off and forget it exists." "Seal off a gateway to a new galaxy? That's insane." "Perhaps, but fear makes people cautious, and the Federation has learned to be very cautious over thousands of years." Wright thought about this. 5 years ago, the Federation had been paralyzed by that same caution. Committees debated while people died, procedures delayed while civilizations fell. Then humans had come and everything had changed. But change was fragile, fear was patient. Given enough time, the old habits could return. "Set course for Federation Central," Wright ordered. "I need to attend that meeting." The council chamber was packed. Every major species was represented, from the ancient Velthari to the newest Federation members. High Chancellor Voreth presided over the gathering, his 4 arms folded in what Wright had learned to recognize as anxiety. "We face a momentous decision," Voreth said. "The gateway offers opportunity but also danger. Some argue that we should explore, that we should reach out to whatever lies beyond. Others argue that we should protect ourselves, that we should seal the gateway and remain safe." A Zentari delegate spoke first. "We have already faced too many crises, the Haven evacuation, the station sabotage, countless disasters since then. We cannot risk another. We should seal the gateway and be done with it." A murmur of agreement went through parts of the assembly. A Velthari elder rose slowly. "For 5,000 years my species has been part of this Federation. In that time we have grown comfortable, safe, stagnant. Then the humans came and they showed us that safety is an illusion. Growth requires risk. Wisdom requires exploration. I say we open the gateway. I say we go forward." More murmurs, but this time more positive. Wright listened to the debate, waiting for his moment. Speaker after speaker gave their opinions. Fear and hope battled back and forth across the chamber. Finally Voreth turned to him. "Admiral Wright, you have been quiet. What do you think?" Wright stood. "I think you already know what I think. I think we should explore. But I also think that's not the real question here." The chamber fell silent. "The real question is what kind of federation we want to be. Do we want to be a civilization that hides from the unknown? Or do we want to be a civilization that faces the unknown together? 5 years ago, you asked humans to lead you in crisis. We did our best. We built something new, something that combines human determination with the wisdom and abilities of every species in this room. But what we built isn't just for emergencies. It's for everything. It's a way of facing challenges together, supporting each other, being stronger as a whole than we are as parts." He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of beings from 100 different worlds. "The gateway is scary. The unknown is always scary, but we've faced scary things before. We've saved millions of lives. We've overcome sabotage and disaster. We've proven that when we work together, nothing can stop us." He paused. "So let's work together now. Let's explore this gateway together. Let's face whatever lies beyond as a united federation. And whatever we find, whether it's danger or opportunity, friends or enemies, let's face it the way we've learned to face everything else. As one people, as one family, as one. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then slowly someone began to applaud, then another, until the entire chamber was filled with the sound of approval. When the vote came, it wasn't even close. 94% voted to explore. The Federation would go forward. Together. 3 months later, the first expedition ships launched toward the gateway. They were crewed by every species in the Federation, trained in the methods that humans had developed and that everyone had improved. They were afraid, but they went anyway, because they had learned that fear was not a reason to stop. Fear was just a feeling, and feelings could be overcome. Admiral Wright watched them go from the bridge of the Determination. Beside him stood Commander Chen, now herself an admiral, and beside her stood representatives from a dozen different species, all of them leaders in the Crisis Response Force. "Think they'll find anything interesting?" Chen asked. "I think they'll find something we never expected," Wright answered. "That's how exploration works. You go looking for one thing and find something completely different." "Are you worried?" Wright considered the question. "A little, but mostly I'm hopeful. Whatever they find, whatever challenges wait on the other side of that gateway, we'll face them together. That's what we do now." Chen nodded. "You know, when we started this 5 years ago, I never imagined it would lead to something like this. We were just trying to save people. Now we're sending expeditions to other galaxies. One thing leads to another. You save 12 million people, and suddenly everyone wants to work with you. You prove that different species can cooperate, and suddenly they want to explore the universe together. You show that fear can be overcome, and suddenly everyone wants to be brave." He smiled. "It's a good thing, Sarah. Maybe the best thing we've ever done." The expedition ships reached the gateway and began their passage into the unknown. For a moment, they hung at the threshold between the familiar and the strange. Then, one by one, they went through. On the other side they found wonder, new stars, new worlds, new possibilities. And somewhere in that new galaxy, watching the strange ships arrive, another civilization began to wake up to the idea that they were not alone in the universe. The Galactic Federation had entered a new era. And humanity, the young species that had barely left its home world a few centuries before, was leading the way into the future. Not because they were stronger or smarter than anyone else, but because they had shown that strength and wisdom came from working together. Because they had proven that crisis could be overcome with courage and cooperation. Because they had taught the galaxy that fear was just a feeling, and that feelings could be overcome. Because they were human. And humanity, as it turned out, was exactly what the galaxy needed. The story of the Federation and its human leaders would continue for thousands of years. There would be triumphs and tragedies. There would be new crises and new solutions. There would be discoveries beyond imagination and challenges beyond belief. But through it all, the lesson would remain. When crisis comes, don't hide, act. When fear speaks, don't listen, move. When the universe throws its worst at you, don't give up, fight. Because that's what humans do. And now, that's what the Federation does too. Together. Forever. To the stars.